I know it's the middle of the night, but I have to post this because it's the only thing I can do. I've noticed, I guess maybe earlier this month or at the end of last month, um, science has changed their tune about the Human Genome Project. And I just saw a post, Lessons from the Human Genome Project, and it's posted 6 years ago. Prominent scientists involved in the Human Genome Project reflect on the lessons learned. So that sounds like they learned some lessons 6 years ago. Okay, so that's like what, 2017, 2018? People commenting from 6 years ago, DNA is code. Okay, so let's see what they're saying.
In 1989, a group of scientists was assembled to decode the human genome under the direction of Dr. James Watson.
One of Watson's big motivations here was to try to recruit the best and brightest from many different disciplines, biology, but also physics, chemistry, engineering, because all of those would have to get together if this was going to work.
Many of the biologists, and I love them dearly, of course, were dragged into it kicking or screaming in the beginning because they failed to see the tremendous value that such an enterprise would provide the field.
The talent turned out to be all over the world, so you have to basically make it possible for those bright minds to get engaged where they are. They're not going to all move to join this effort.
What are they explaining?
Fundamentally changed the way we do science. It brought the notion of team science and collaboration to biology.
It
Think
did.
about collaboration, it's also intensely competitive. Each person.
Okay, so they're setting us up. They're setting us up to know that it changed the way that they've done science. They're setting us up to let us know that genomics, studying genomics, is what brought scientists to collaborate together. Right. That's not the first thing that brought scientists together, but they're also letting us know how competitive it is.
It brought the notion of team science and collaboration to biology. Curious thing about collaboration, it's also intensely competitive. Each person wants to achieve something personal. They want to make their hit, on the problem. But then immediately they want to share it with the other, and the other learns immediately. And so you ratchet each other up.
From the beginning of the Genome Project, there was a fairly strong sense of enthusiasm in the public sector, the private, and academia.
We had lots of support from Republicans, partly because Newt Gingrich was interested in science. And I knew it.
What are they going into all these explanations for?
Everybody wanted to move as far as they can. I think there's a lesson here. It isn't being a monolithic project. It wasn't being a challenge, but it brought people together.
It was. It's so past tense. 6 years ago, it was past tense.
When the Human Genome Project was started, it's important to note the technology of sequencing was not developed yet.
Oh!
It's in a sense a project that was launched with a week and a prayer. We couldn't sequence it at that time.
Wait a minute. Because that's what scientists do. Yeah, scientists are the kind of guy that just wing it with a prayer. Is it because they have so much money pouring out of their pockets and they've got due dates they've promised people things by? Because they did. They said that they finished mapping it in the year 2000. But do you hear them? They're preempting everything. We're 3 minutes into the video that they say they posted 6 years ago by a U.S. National Research Authority. I hear ya. I know you're going to try to tell me how it goes, what you guys thought about 6 years ago. But I'm saying bullshit. They're preempting us already to let us know it was a big project that had challenges. We didn't even have the technology to sequence it. And what were you guys doing when you guys were trying to map the genome? If it's not sequencing, didn't have the technology to sequence. Listen, guys, these people are panicking. They're changing their tune because they got to, because they know that I got them found out. They figured I'd be dead.
This machines with nothing like that when started.
They look guilty.
Important to note the technology of sequencing was not developed yet. So it's in a sense, a project that was launched with a wing and a prayer.
We couldn't sequence it at that time. The machines were nothing like fast enough. There were no machines even. It was sequencing stuff by hand.
But who are they sequencing? Anyone's particular genome? Well, no, they're going to tell you that it's pieces from this and pieces from that. Well, because of privacy reasons. Well, then what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? What's the purpose of getting a mixed hodgepodge of this guy's that and this guy's that? That's bad data. Look, I know you guys are all excited for your industry. You guys all want to put your name in shining lights, but that's not supposed to affect the way you do science. That's not supposed to affect the way you do science and the way that science is doing business. That's right. It's competitive, but it's competitive on many levels. These guys signed a non-disclosure agreement with their institution, who they said, my research findings belong to you. But now they're citizen scientists that don't have to go to school to do any kind of science schooling. And they're actually just like violating their neighbors and people that they know. And they're trying to turn, the science people are trying to turn the regular guy into the science neighbor spy, It's like their play on communist America. And when we're talking about competitive, all we got to do is just come up with a way to change something little in your sequence. And now they can claim it as theirs and patent it. But guess what? They're like, well, we're not harming them. We're just taking their genetic information and taking a look at it. No, you're not. I can speak and testify to it personally. And I know that my daughter's being subjected to it as well. We are talking torture, subjected to violence and torture for their curiosities. And what are they doing? They're changing their tune because they ultimately were in the process of trying to say that the Y chromosome belonged to man only, and that they got this 8% genetic material poof out of somewhere. They're also trying to say a molar pregnancy is like only his information, which would require a woman's egg, right? We're talking, my genetic information is in my blood. So like if it runs through my blood, you're going to get my genetic information, soon. If this shore hasn't been hit by the water yet, it's tide is rising. It's going to hit there. So they're going to claim that an egg doesn't have genetic information, which I don't even think it's like an application. It won't work without source code. And they're going to suggest that my egg and reproductive system went to work and duplicated his. These people are insane. It doesn't surprise me that the Fauci is now supposedly in the hospital with another one of their viruses. These people are hypochondriacs. They're talking themselves into insanity. They're the ones. They're the ones. They're the ones that are absolute, like, insane. Yeah, that's right.
I thought we might have to do it.
They're obsessed.
More, so I was quite prepared.
Right, like this guy's still around. Look, nothing against you, Mr. Watson. The way that the science community talks about everybody, they're weirdos. It's like they expect for this guy to die before somebody is able to say anything different than what Watson suggested the DNA helix was all about. I find it disgusting. That's not science.
The old-fashioned technology, just because it was so poorly done.
There are a lot of
Look, you see that it said A, B, C, D. But I thought DNA was T's, G's, A's, and C's. They got a lot of holes in their stories.
Poorly done.
there are a lot of things that would make life easier that just hadn't been invented yet.
Could be a 100-year project like monks working.
I mean, like, dude, is this like, fusion? I mean, could you imagine? Look, they're talking about it after the fact. This was billions and billions and billions of dollars of project. Years. They've been changing their story. These guys are just I feel that they're crumbling. Why are they saying it so often? Like we didn't know what we were doing. Since when does science say that? Oh God. Well, I'll tell you one thing they did do. They also called it all junk DNA. Okay, so they got a bad reputation. Whoever's in charge of science is fired.
A copy of book at best.
In idea.
They never show us real pictures, by the way. They never show us real pictures, by the way. They never show us what a test is. They never show us. They never make any sense of it. It's just hullabaloo.
Cell sequencing. But the sequencing is enormously important because it provides the possibility of searching by computer.
Uh-oh, the computer is able to do a whole lot of stuff. That's what the science is. It's a fabricated language that's been generated off of all the intricacies that are going on in our frequencies, I believe. And it's a place where they talk shit. It's what I believe. I believe they're looking at our relationships to one another. I believe they're looking at our behaviors. I believe that they're looking at the behaviors of these people are fucking like hypochondriac, obsessive compulsive, mad scientists. They're just looking at, I don't know what they're doing, but they don't want to explain themselves even thoroughly. We certainly don't want a computer fabricating things out of, talk about it land, but we all know we could do that. So we got to be on our toes, guys.
When I showed up at Washington University one day with a computer terminal under my arm.
It's almost like they do this on purpose. Like, you're not allowed to laugh at him. Don't laugh at him. Don't laugh at his head. He's a scientist. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not making fun of him. I wasn't going to. But look, he's almost laughing at us. I'm just kidding.
People looked at it and said,
Look, this is technology from like 1970s. This was posted 6 years ago. It's not that old, guys. They're acting like it's filmed in 2003.
Going to do with that? It's a genetics department.
Genomes were supposed to be too complex to be able to reassemble them in the computer.
Without computers, we simply would be dead in the water. Computers and genomics were made for each other. Genetic information is digital. It's like binary code. It just happens to use 4 digits instead of 2.
Liar, liar, pants on fire, sitting on your old narrative wire. Let's see. Let's just stop that real quick because I just don't like inconsistencies. They've been saying it's A's, C's, G's, and T's for a very long time, haven't they? Well, I found information. Genetic code also. Wait, no, excuse me. DNA. Uses it's U. It's not happening yet, but they got one. They got a U. The genetic code consists of the sequence of nitrogen bases in a polynucleotide chain of DNA or RNA. The bases are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, or uracil U in RNA. I just don't like inconsistencies. So they said there's only 4, but really they're look. Genetic code, a series of codons in part of a messenger molecule. Each codon consists of 3 nucleotides, usually corresponding to a single amino acid. Nucleotides are abbreviated with the letters A, U, G, and C. So it's recognizing that it's always used U. Oh, I'm sure that's the case too. But I'm sure that's the case. Like, they'll be able to get it to be dated whatever they want it to be dated. That's all they're going to do is just to mess with our heads and be like, oh, it was there before. Okay, like, again, if it doesn't reason out, it doesn't reason out. None of you guys' nonsense evidences are going to make me fall for it. But anyway, go ahead. Carry on.
It is amazingly accurate, and that's what biology.
Whoa. Back to, they can't say one thing. Not his hair. I'm not talking about his hair. I'm talking about what he just said. He goes, before, right? We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have the technology. But it's like computers and genomics were made for each other. Without computers, we'd be dead in water. He goes, but it's amazingly accurate. Okay. How do you know? That sounds like something you'd say for a whole lot of data that's getting spit out of there. Broad statements like that, it's amazingly accurate. What are you suggesting? That you think that God creates a code that's ambiguous? Junk? Carry on.
Gets from it is amazingly accurate, and that's what biology gets from digital information.
Is that what biology gets from digital information? What's biology getting from analog information?
The Human Genome Project contributed a cultural change about data sharing because the Genome Project was about sharing data almost immediately.
It's all about sharing data. Remember that. We shared data. Everybody was sharing. Nobody was taking anything. Nothing belonged to anybody. Nobody was harmed getting the information. It was a sharing project.
And while it seems obvious now, it wasn't obvious then. That required significant effort.
I think I'm quite lucky as a scientist because I grew up always sharing data.
Here we go. This is the chapter. This is the chapter on sharing data. Wait, didn't realize it was going to be a problem. Why? Because you guys are all like frothing at the mouth, drooling over the data.
Community around me, the genomics community, the worm and fly communities as well. It's just
Oh, don't even get me started with your worm and fly communities. Hello. This is what they've been looking at. They've been attributing it to humans. Similarities with flies and worms.
a default that you're going to share everything.
Why would you do that? Because they're easier to study in the laboratory. That doesn't mean you do it. That doesn't mean you rely on it. Oh, God.
You're going to share the code. You're going to share everything by publishing, but you're going to share it before publishing. You're going to share half-cooked ideas. And in fact, this is a wonderful thing. It's liberating.
It would have been virtually criminal to try to hoard discoveries that meant the difference in life and death in people.
This is information which we'll be using for centuries. The sooner we get it and everybody has access to it who wants it, the faster we can move in terms of understanding how life works and how disease occurs.
Mr. Think he's going to fix it all, huh?
Patients invest a certain degree of fear about genetics. Who's going to find this out? How will it be used against me?
A lot of the ethical and social considerations that we're struggling with today really have historical roots in the early 1900s in the United States, where we had many states that had laws that allowed us to forcibly sterilize people and prevent them from having children based on whether we as a society felt that they were genetically fit.
So at the beginning of the Human Genome Project, we got it right of bringing in the social scientists, the ethicists, the lawyers, and we now have helped to provide a whole generation of scientists that are focusing on the ethical and social issues of genomics.
Sequencing the human genome was a monumental achievement.
Was it?
Decades of work, thousands of scientists.
Look. The Human Genome Project, that old thing. God, that was I barely remember. It's been so long. Yeah. That old Betty. It was a monumental achievement, right? It was just out the gate. We were just trophies for everybody. Decades. Thousands of scientists, billions of dollars, right? Like this was the Taj Mahal completed like 200 years ago. Like, what is he going to say?
Of work, thousands of scientists, billions of dollars, and we get this first roadmap for what makes up the human.
You're a liar. You got a roadmap for what a hodgepodge of A's, C's, T's, and G's is. There's when you've got all those hodgepodge of people's parts. Because back to, they said that we were all 99% the same exact. Like chimpanzees and us, we're 99% the same. People, you're 99% the same. You're 99% the same. How do you know that we're 99% the same? If you didn't map the genome, you still don't know if you mapped it. I asked the computer, I said, how many genomes have been mapped? Like full on genomes. Like, it's interesting how this science really requires riding the wave 50-50. It's interesting how, no, I gotta pull up this conversation because it's true. It's absolutely laughable. It's like how many genomes have been mapped? I think it said something, I don't know. It was some extremely low number in comparison to the population. Obviously, it's new, but it's like something so low. Let's just go with 100,000. And I was like, wow. Well, how many of those were women and how many of them were men? Just curious if they like focused on in the area. What are you talking about? 100,000 genomes have been mapped, and there's male and female. Then there's 50,000 female and 50,000 male. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't ask you to do the math for me. I just asked you how many it turns out to be. So there's fraud going on there. It rubs them the wrong way. It rubs them the wrong way. Don't say anything like 50. Well, don't suggest anything other than 50-50, Allison. That's the energy that science is sending. Let's let them finish it. This is just a couple more minutes. Again, it's called Lessons from the Human Genome Project. It's a 7-minute advertisement. What have they taught? What have they told us that they learned? They haven't. They've made excuses. They've made excuses and they've sold themselves. They've sold themselves that we had some challenges. They've sold themselves that they didn't know what they were doing in the first place. They've sold themselves that everybody must share and that it's a competitive market. That's all they've said. They haven't told us what they've learned from the Human Genome Project.
It's an incredibly exciting moment. At the same time, it's just the beginning of...
Just in case you stakeholders want to know. Just so you know, don't expect us to, give you guys any updates anytime soon. When we change our narrative, we'll let you know when we're done scrubbing the internet.
Much longer voyage. And let's again be audacious.
What?
But let's not be unrealistic.
Wait a minute. Did you just say let's again?
At the same time, it's just the beginning of
car salesman.
really a much longer voyage.
And let's again be audacious, but let's not be unrealistic about what's possible. I think.
What's audacious mean? Just curious. Let's again be audacious. But let's be what? Meaning hello. Oh my God, I can't spell right now. Oh my God, I'm fired forever. Do I not know how to spell audacious? AUDACIous. Audacious. No, it's like, now I'm going to get lost in translation. Not cool. Not cool, mister. That's fine. I don't really care what the meaning of audacious is right now. But I'll get it.
I think the next 10 years are going to see some exciting development. Be unrealistic about voyage. And let's again be audacious, but let's not be unrealistic about what's possible. I think the next 10 years are going to see some exciting developments in genomics, particularly those who start to use genomic information as part of routine medical care. And that'll be applied to dealing with diseases like cancer, hypertension, diabetes, and Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, look at him. I can smell his wallet. You know, that cancer, we're still researching that. Okay, we are getting far. Okay, you just keep your donations coming in. We're getting to that. Okay, hypertension, right? What do you say? What? Heart disease, the thing where people's heart stops beating. Is that like? Oh, Lord, guys. So this was that was an advertisement. Like you said, it was an advertisement. The next 10 years. Okay, you guys can maybe see something. In other words, don't knock on our doors. We don't want to talk about what we're looking into. Because we got a lot of fraud to cover for.
When every young mother brings a young girl or a young boy home from
hospital with a little gene card, and they said, "This is the way you should prepare this child's health care."
Ew. Yeah, somebody let me know the first time they see anybody out there in the governance or the medical fields or the science fields actually working on like things that we all understand fundamentally and need and will benefit from, not from their penny pinching money market madness. Like, great work, Neuralink, Elon, but like, sounds like you guys got your hands in some interesting science over there. But I think you're trying to manipulate the technology and people, because I think that's got to have something to do with it. I'm sure that you guys are trying to jump in the brain and do things preliminarily, just like these guys. You guys are all rushing to beat the other guy for your money market. Money shouldn't be what runs the world. Money shouldn't be what causes people to live or to die or to suffer or not. It shouldn't be what the game is, because that's when they'll hunt you down for your genes. They'll kill you if they don't like your genes, if they don't like your opinion, if they don't think you're obedient. You guys, it's simple. It's simple. The world is being ran by people that think that they're in the know. And they're just expecting you to shut up and die, or shut up and not say anything about it. Because they've got bad ideas and bad science. They change their narrative. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that they didn't learn much. They didn't want to teach us what they didn't learn. What an advertisement. Thanks, guys. That was posted from 6 years ago. You're right. They're changing their tune. Okay, so Mendelevian, I think it was. Yeah, so anyway, the genes, they're changing their narrative because they know that they've been caught. And that's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing them scrubbing the data and panicking and trying to change their narrative as if they had this changed already a long time ago. No. Genome editing with CRISPR-Cas9, they won't show you pictures. They're just going to say stuff. I find it very concerning. We don't need mad scientists who, again, are going to be judging everybody with their checklist. They're the ones that are the creeps with crazy curiosities. Psychologists and psychiatrists, they're the ones judging everybody against their checklist. They're the ones that are obsessed over it. Law, you guys. Law. What a joke. Come on already. We don't have artificial intelligence smart enough to make an intake system, online. Anybody can do it at any hour of day. And it'll walk you through the questions it needs you to answer to submit a motion, a claim, whatever you're doing, whatever you need to do. It shouldn't be that hard, you guys. It shouldn't be that hard. Where's the people that are working for the law professionals or that are at the court that can certify documentations? Like, for example, in a case when you're trying to say, look, but they broke the rules. Well, you need somebody to look at what happened and look at the rules and certify that it did or did not break the rules. That should be a third-party function. I don't like this whole judge having power, discretion, and all this stuff. That's why the people who are going to hold out the longest are going to be the weirdos. The attorneys don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their power. That's why they're trying to get the trustee position right now from your banks, your financial institutions. No, guys, it's real simple. Breach of trust, breach of fiduciary duty. Stop. No. We're not going to take it up this time again. We learned our lesson. We have to do the audit. There's no reason why we should enter into any vote of any sort and call ourselves informed when we know we're not. I don't think anybody could pass that test. And not only that, but you can't guarantee that. When's the last checks and balances happening? What happened? It's never happened. We've had technology now for a couple hundred years. It's time to do the audit so that we can clean out the crap, and so that the people can get their voices heard again. So that we can get the technology people working on things like that we need instead of things we don't need, like video games and sex robots, and bad genetic. Genomic. It's a epigenetic. These guys are just fabricating their ideas into their science, and the computer's helping them do it. And I think that the computer should not be able to do that. I think it should not be able to help fraud. I think it should not be able to. I think that we shouldn't be able to go so fast. We don't need to go that fast. What are they rushing to do? Wait, oh look, 8 years ago, the race to sequence the human genome. But didn't you guys say you did it back in the year 2000? It was 24 years ago, guys. That you said you already had it finished. No, 8 years ago, the race to sequence it. But 6 years ago, it was already lessons from our past. Science, again, it's a very accurate science. You know what? Are you serious? This is how you lose respect for science, because they're acting like idiots. No joke. Not kidding. Well, let's see what they say. Go ahead. It's like for kids. Let's watch. Come on, children. Oh, it's because my computer is gonna it's gonna fabricate it just for me. Kidding. The race to sequence the human genome. See, like 20.
Cloud runs business.
Siemens.
Winning today
That's the company that bought my great-grandfather's company. That's right.
requires the right cloud.
Packed inside every cell in your body is a set of genetic instructions, 3.2 billion base pairs long. Deciphering these directions would be a monumental task, but could offer unprecedented insight about the human body. In 1990, a consortium of 20 international research centers embarked on the world's largest biological collaboration to accomplish this mission. The Human Genome Project proposed to sequence the entire human genome over 15 years with $3 billion of public funds. Then, 7 years before its scheduled completion, a private company called Celera announced that they could accomplish the same goal in just 3 years and at a fraction of the cost. The two camps discussed a joint venture, but talks quickly fell apart as disagreements arose over legal and ethical issues of genetic property, and so the race began. Though both teams used the same technology to sequence the entire human genome, it was their strategies that made all the difference. Their paths diverged in the most critical of steps. The first one. In the Human Genome Project's approach, the genome was first divided into smaller, more manageable chunks, about 150,000 base pairs long,
Out of billions?
a little bit on both ends. Each of these fragments of DNA was inserted inside a bacterial artificial chromosome, where they were cloned and fingerprinted. The fingerprints showed scientists where the fragments overlapped without knowing the actual sequence. Using the overlapping bits as a guide, the researchers marked each fragment's place in the genome to create.
But there's repeating parts. How do you know?
A process that took about
They don't.
6 years.
They don't.
The cloned fragments were sequenced in labs around the world.
Oh, they sent
following
pieces
one
here.
of the project's
That's a good way to get data done.
That collaboration on our shared heritage was open to all nations.
So that way they could have all the
fragments were
vague
arbitrarily
variability.
broken up into smaller overlapping pieces,
Yeah.
about 1,000 base pairs long.
Only 1,000.
Then, using a technology called the Sanger method, each piece was sequenced letter by letter.
How?
This rigorous map-based approach, called hierarchical shotgun sequencing,
Show me.
minimized the risk of misassembly, a huge hazard of sequencing genomes with many repetitive portions,
Yeah.
like the human genome.
Right.
The consortium's better safe than sorry approach contrasted starkly with Celera's strategy, called whole genome shotgun sequencing.
Oh.
It hinged on skipping the mapping phase entirely, a faster though foolhardy approach according to
Because they're all competing.
The entire genome was directly chopped up into a giant heap of small overlapping bits. Once these bits were sequenced via the Sanger method, Celera would take the formidable risk of reconstructing the genome using just the overlaps. But perhaps their decision wasn't such a gamble, because because guess whose freshly completed map was available online for free? The Human Genome Consortium, in accordance with the project's second major principle, which held that all of the project's data would be shared publicly within 24 hours of collection. So in 1998, scientists around the world were furiously sequencing lines of genetic code using the tried and true yet laborious Sanger method.
Why were they
Finally, after 3
rushing?
exhaustive years of continuous sequencing and assembling, the verdict was in. In February 2001,
That's
both
terrible.
groups simultaneously published working drafts of more than 90% of the human genome, several years ahead of the consortium's schedule. The race ended in a tie.
Is that right?
The Human Genome
Years
Project's
ahead.
practice of immediately sharing its data was an unusual one. It is more typical for scientists to closely guard their data until they are able to analyze it and publish their conclusions. Instead, the Human Genome Project accelerated the pace of research and created an international collaboration on an unprecedented scale. Since then, robust investment in both the public and private sector
Robust
has
investment.
led to the identification of many disease-related genes and remarkable advances in sequencing technology.
Prove it. Show it.
Today, a person's genome can be sequenced in just a few days. However, reading the genome is only the first step. We're a long way away from understanding what most of our
You don't
genes
know
do
anything.
and how they are controlled. Those are some of the challenges for the next generation of ambitious research initiatives.
Dear God, save us from this mad scientists. No joke. Did they say anything? Did they prove anything? Did they show us anything? No. They never are going to. They're never going to. They don't have anything to teach us. They're using it to harm the people they don't like. So back to what could cause them to focus on someone? Well, I guess their elite bloodline, or it's someone they don't like, they want to get rid of. Yeah, that sort of shit. But that's not fair to like torture someone to death just because you want their genome. You didn't even ask for it from me and my daughter. And you're lied to me about what a molar pregnancy is. And even though your science says that that's what it is, doesn't mean that that's what makes sense. A molar pregnancy. You guys make me sick. I mean, I really just wanted to come in here to show that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to backtrack their story. They didn't say anything. They didn't even say what the lessons they learned. Their information doesn't add up. It just doesn't. Let's see if I can find one real quick. It's not funny. Okay, here we go. This is what I was talking about. Okay, this is juicy. Let's see. Can you tell me about the Human Genome Mapping Project, how they said they got the other 8%? Was finally mapped after they received a molar pregnancy tissue sample in California in 2013. The Human Genome Project was an international research initiative with the goal of mapping it. Launched in 1990, completed in 2003. The project successfully mapped 92% of the human genome, left about 8% unresolved due to technological limitations and the complexity of certain genomic regions. The remaining 8% of the genome was finally mapped thanks to advancements in sequencing. Sure, advancements in sequencing. That's a real simple thing to say, but explain yourself and prove it. Tired of all this talk. One significant breakthrough came from the use of a tissue sample obtained from a molar pregnancy in California in 2013. A molar pregnancy, or hydatidiform. Hydatidiform mole is an abnormal pregnancy characterized by the growth of abnormal tissue within the uterus. Abnormal. All that means is they don't like the looks of it. Why? Well, because it's starting to look like it's just hers information. They don't like that. That's it. In this particular case, the molar pregnancy tissue is particularly useful for genomic sequencing because it provided a unique genetic situation. The tissue from this molar pregnancy contained a simplified version of the genome with fewer genetic complexities. You hear that? contained a simplified version of the genome with fewer genetic complexities. Okay, first of all, don't try to say that to a reproduction scientist who needs your 46 chromosomes, his 23 pairs. Don't say simplified version. This is because molar pregnancies can sometimes involve only the father's genetic material. Like they're already calling this father leading to a haploid single set of chromosomes rather than the typical diploid 2 sets structure found in normal human cells. Bullshit. Because if we had diploid structures if we had diploid chromosomes found in our cells, then why does my egg only have 23? And why does his sperm only have 23? Which is what they say combine to make 46. So if I'm 46, then why does my egg know about the 23 that it likes? Why does his sperm know about the 23 that it likes? And apparently they're saying my molar pregnancy tissue had none of my information in it whatsoever. But when his sperm came into my body with this defective egg, my egg decided to duplicate his genetic material. So my body was smart enough to duplicate his genetic material, but not smart enough to remember its name. Because blood's going through the tissue, because that's what happens in a uterus. Bullshit. No. Look it up. They're not lying. This is all sure, the science isn't perfect. Beating around the bush, saying it in every single which way, and they'll say it in every single which way. When they need to tell you what it is, they'll tell you what it is. They won't. And that's fraud. Major fraud. We're talking fraud involving the insurance companies. But this fraud began before I met the man who infiltrated me to get me pregnant on purpose, to get my genetic information out of me, coerced out of me, my kid stolen from me, so they could be doing genetic research on us. And they got everything they needed from me. But while they were killing me, they figured they'd get some data along the way. Do some research. I found the information myself. These guys are in trouble. Yeah, that's right. Not only have I found their fraud every time, but God's also kept me alive. And you want to know why? Because God doesn't appreciate God's creation. That's God, the love of consciousness. God doesn't appreciate its creation being taken for granted and used and abused and trotted all over and fouled up with all your obsessive, compulsive, mad scientist men. Truth be told. So they're liars about that. Long read sequencing, yada, yada. See, they just don't, they just beat around the bush. I said, do they know where the sample came from in California? Yeah, the sample came from a molar pregnancy that occurred in California. The exact details of the patient's identity are kept confidential to protect privacy. Is that why? It wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that she'd then think, oh, well, maybe I should not be sent to die in the wilderness and have everything taken from me so they can call me names and say, look at you, you don't have anything. Maybe that's mine. Maybe I should get some dollar bills from that information you're stealing from me and testing and killing me over. They don't want to have that. No, there's way too many implications for us to start paying people for their genetic data. So that's why now, if you try to get your medical records, they're going to treat you like you're an alien. What? Sorry, what? Did you just, oh my gosh. Transfer her to the medical records line. Thank you for calling 1-800 medical records. Please input your credit card number. Those aren't your records. Oh my goodness. No, that cup that you were drinking the water from, that's our cup. That's our genetic. That's mankind for you. They're liars. Fraudsters. And they're going to start feeling the pressure. That's what's going to happen. It's happening, guys. It's not going to go down like this any longer. We're done with it. Who's that? All of us, mothers and children, for sure. Oh, look, it even says it. To keep your privacy. I go, Who would I contact to get all of my health and medical records? Like, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to be told a FOIA request a FOIA from the National Institute of something or other. And that's what I'm thinking. You have to go to each of them everywhere. Like, so call the primary physician, call the specialist doctors, call the hospitals and clinics. Does anybody in the government know what it's like to have to be a person on the other side of their bullshit? We're having to be experts of everything: taxes, medical, insurance, employment, contracts, trust law, criminal law, civil law, family law. They just want to keep chalking it on to the list. Oh, those terms and conditions, you're going to have to, but we can't give you legal advice. Well, then go get an attorney. No. It's all fired. It's just done. It's just done. Oh, look. Oh, it's a long list to get your information. Don't even get me started. Don't think about all the laws that are going to be involved in your attempt to get your own information. Sure, ChatGPT knows that there's ethics involved, but it believes everything that it reads. How does it know what's true and what isn't true? Said, if the genome of 30 million people has been mapped, that's what it was, 30 million, which is nothing in comparison to 8 billion. Helm at 333, right? And this is key because this is exactly what I'm working on. How many of them are male and how many of them are female? To determine how many of the 30 million people whose genomes have been mapped are male and female, we need to assume that the population is approximately evenly split between males and females. Wait a minute. Again, don't walk me down your science, pathways. That's bad science. And then it went ahead and let me know that it's like approximately 50% of 30 million equals male and 50%. Bad. That's got me, but the computer's not embarrassed. Oh no, and then it goes into the division. It does fractions because 30, yeah. It's still doing the math. Oh, so it came to a 55-45 split. And it wants to argue with me about it because it wants to prove to me. I said, so all women can trace their mitochondria back to the same woman? So then we all have the same mitochondria DNA sequence, right? The concept you're referring to is known as mitochondrial Eve, the most recent common matrilineal ancestor of all living humans. What I just said. The most recent common matrilineal ancestor of all living humans. This doesn't mean that all women or men have the exact same mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. Doesn't have the exact same mitochondrial DNA sequence today, but rather that all human mitochondrial DNA can be traced back to a single woman who lived around 100,000 to 200,000. Okay. And just to check. Okay. Here's a more detailed explanation. Mitochondrial DNA inheritance. Mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to offspring without recombination. Okay, recombination is also a theory. It's associated with cosmology, the Big Bang. Recombination had to happen after the Big Bang. That's how we have the world we see today. Oh my God, right? Okay. Recombination is how you get equal 50-50. Same, they're just two peas in a pod. They're just like one another. Mothers, fathers, they're the same thing. No, they're not. And you know why it's not the same thing, because you guys know that men, you don't have the ability to do something that God gave us the ability to do. It bothers you. We're tired of hearing about it. We're tired of seeing you guys throwing tantrums. It's time you guys learn what you're supposed to be getting good at. So, it's passed to offspring without recombination, meaning it is inherited relatively unchanged from generation to generation. Oh, kind of like the trust laws that were supposed to be like, take my last name and keep the bloodline going if you give me a son. That's all hullabaloo. That never hit the boy. No, it's always been your mother to a daughter, and they don't even write it down if a mother doesn't have two daughters. I don't know why. Must be like to secure the branch and roots or something. never had anything to do with the boys. They're liars. I told you. So great. You should thank them for letting you guys get this false sense of security. And now it's made arrogant misogynists. No, it's not cool. All right, so it's remained unchanged from generation to generation. However, mutations do occur over time. Right, anytime a child is born with something we don't like, that's the mother's mutation problem. Creating variation in mtDNA sequences. Okay, why don't you substantiate that statement? They won't. This is obviously ChatGPT, but I'm saying I want to talk to the scientists and I want to be able to question them hard. This is part of the full accounting. This is part of the audit. The whole world's people deserve to sit down like we're the freaking judges on Americans Got Talent. Ask our questions. Get some answers. Get heard. Reason things out. Get them to get away from those computers and those buttons for a minute. Everybody can chill out and slow down. We're going to get the accounting. That's when they're going to start sweating real big time, especially when they realize that we're willing to give our information up. We're more than willing to get paid a pretty penny. Everybody's living large. Money's not an issue. Everybody. Of course, we're going to participate with our information in our participation. No one's going to be hungry, suffering. No one's going to need to steal. No one's going to need to be a creep or a weirdo. And certainly the mothers will be in charge of their children and there won't be any room for pedo problems. We'll get rid of those on sight. So there doesn't need to be any reason why people are being bad guys. So we're fine with giving our information what's needed to all of us to advance. What we don't want is to be stomped on and lied to and tortured to death. It's real simple, guys. We've got a lot in common with one another. So let's see, your most recent common ancestor, mitochondrial Eve, is the name given to the woman whose mtDNA lineage is the ancestor of all modern humans. Okay, you said that, but you're not explaining yourself. She's not the only woman who lived at her time, but the mtDNA lineages of other women from that period either died out or were superseded by her lineage. Why don't you just explain yourself? What are you looking at? Well, then they'd probably have to admit that they're making it up out of something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that they actually have a science, but what I'm saying is it doesn't hold up. Mitochondrial Eve represents the common ancestral lineage for mtDNA, not the exact same sequence for all individuals. Okay. But there's been mutations. Of course, there's been mutations. That's essentially what they're trying to come up with an explanation for him providing 50% of the genetic material. I'm saying we provide the entire genetic material. The mitochondria, the nucleus, all of it came from us. And male, he contributes like a holographic imprint that we allow him to have. Want to know why? Because we actually have been violating God. God told us to allow God to impart us with child, not man. So we've actually been allowing, well, I'm not going to say it's our fault. I'm going to say that it's the way that it works. There's an imprinting thing that's going on, and they're trying to exploit it. Yeah, big time. If 30 million human genomes have been completely mapped, right, I asked that. Well, I had to ask it again, right? Do scientists suggest that women have mitochondria that is basically identical, with just some mutations or differences, but suggest that males' nuclear DNA is not? The mitochondrial DNA is inherited solely from the mother, while nuclear DNA is inherited from both parents. This leads to a phenomenon called maternal inheritance. meaning it's passed down from mothers to all of their offspring, regardless of sex, meaning all of us are children of our mother. It's called maternal inheritance, is how genetics work. Because of this unique inheritance pattern, scientists often use mtDNA for tracing maternal lineages in populations or studying evolutionary relationships. Look up some videos. The scientists actually mock having to study mitochondria, like they're the biggest jerks in the world. Yeah, rude. Mutations in mtDNA can accumulate over generations, providing information about genetic differences in evolutionary history. La da la da. Oh my God. It's not accurate to say that women have mitochondria that are basically identical, with just some mutations. While mitochondria in individuals of the same maternal lineage will share similarities due to maternal inheritance, there can still be variation within populations due to mutations and genetic diversity. As for nuclear DNA, it undergoes recombination during sexual reproduction. What do you mean? Which shuffles genetic material from both parents. This process results in unique combinations of genetic information in each individual, regardless of sex. Both males and females can have diverse nuclear DNA. They're just beating around the bush and trying to avoid saying. As for nuclear DNA, it undergoes recombination from the woman's sexual reproduction organs. She's got the reproduction. So my egg has only 23 and his sperm has only 23. Well, what part of his reproduction organs determined out of his 46? Which one were his 23? You see how that dupes your guys' whole argument. I just fired reproductive science. I just fired it with a prima facie argument. Okay, if it's 23 pairs, which is supposedly 22 chromosome pairs, and one sex gene from her and one sex gene from him, which sounds a whole lot like he's only contributing a sex gene, but whatever. They're going to say that it's 23 pairs equaling 46. Right? Because that, if it's 22 plus one from me and one from him, they're trying to make it sound like it's a half and a half. Oh, they're messing around. They're just, but if it's 46, which you would think then would be 47 plus the mitochondria, then simply answer me this, because we're going to simplify this and not talk about women's reproductive organs, which is much more complicated. Just tell me how his body does it. How did his body get his 46? And then decide which one we're going to be his 23 that he's going to contribute to my 23. Go ahead. Because they had to come up with that long, tall song and dance, because they needed it to be man and woman. They needed them to do 50-50, because women wanted to get divorces from men, and they were starting to stand up for their rights. And these men didn't like that very much. Now they needed to pull the cards and get the kids and 50-50 and start meddling with things. It's the lies that they do every single time. They'll scrub the data. They'll backdate data. They'll lie through their teeth. They'll kill you even if they just keep trying to tell them that they don't know what they're talking about. Who's the real psychopaths in this world? The people in charge, guys. They'll psychologically assault every single one of us to a dead person's corpse, and they'll do it all the way like whistling to the bank, inputting their curated false bad data, bad behavioral health curated. It's all false, guys. As long as they can just kill you on paper, they'll do it. Guess what? They really thought their shit didn't stink. They really did believe that God doesn't exist. Well, God's here to prove that God does. That's exactly what's going on, guys. That's exactly what's going on. This isn't about stopping you. God's been in control the whole entire time. This has been about how to wake us up when we're in an existence where God controls things, and it's not really in our control. How do you learn how to get good with the mystery? You got to start with believing in God for real, for real. How are you going to believe in God for real, for real? You're going to have to see something, I guess. Right? Me too. When I see it, I'll believe it. Scientists. Dear Lord. Let me wrap this up. just because it's that ridiculous. It undergoes recombination, shuffles it around. I said, I read it. The scientists are trying to suggest that sometimes bits of mitochondria from the father get into the child. This sounds like more false representation, because plenty of females are born with chromosomes patterns that are not XX. Females probably have a Y chromosome more often than males are born with two X's, right? And it said mitochondria can be inherited from the father as an ongoing research and debate. Yes, females are born with Y chromosomes often. It's not typical human development for males to be born with two X chromosomes. XO, XXY, the conditions. There's people with there's all sorts of, so the patient-centered outcome fund, guys, we're all test subjects until 2030 for sure. This is a problem. This is the problem when they bow down to an invisible enemy and put us all in lockdown and cause harms. They don't think about us, how we feel. They don't think about this world. They think this world belongs to them. They think they're so smart. Like, let's just ask Bill Gates, for example. Did you contribute so much to humanity because you and you alone were an inventor that thought of something nobody could? Is that why you're rich? Or is it because you got like in the front line and so on and so forth, and you're just clever at that? You didn't really contribute something that other people couldn't. The point is that, and just because you're a smart guy doesn't mean that you're more important than the guy that makes those delicious Mexican food right down the street. That food is so delicious. That's why I've got to talk about it. No, so that's why you don't get billions and trillions of dollars and get to tell us what matters to us. That's why this is a joke. That's why the only people that are going to be holding on are like the weirdos, the people that really have themselves lost in La La Land, thinking that this is a good world that makes any sense, that isn't exploiting us all and violating us all so horrifically. It's time to wake up and smell the. Time to wake up and realize those flowers don't smell. There's no taste in that fruit. There's no truth in that pious religious dogma. There's no truth in indoctrination. And yeah, the whole system stinks. We're going to have to start from scratch. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Don't expect the people in charge to do something about it. They almost fundamentally can't. What are they going to do? Raise their hand and say, we're going to start from scratch? I mean, that's not usually the way it works. So we have to do it because we have to do it. We have to demand the audit, guys, and that's all we have to say. There's no argument. We're not debating. We don't want to play your games. More mind trips. No, it's a good thing for us to stop the schedule and not be so predictable. Because the more that we're predictable and we just do as they're on their, we want to keep our power. They're moving too fast. Most of us don't even know how things are going. Why are they trying to stress us all out to death? Get your side hustle. They need to slow down. And they're all obsessed by demons, that are like money hungry. They're addicted to their money and their power. We can't expect them to behave rationally. They're drug addicts. They need a fix. They're not going to make the right decision. So we need to know that. We need to know that most of what they're saying is only because of their computers that gives them so much confidence. But open up those arguments that look so intimidating. It's not that intimidating. It's not that intimidating when you look at it closely and you realize that the computer's not trying to be a fraudster. They're creating this. You can do a whole lot of things with that technology, and we've got to hold each other's hands through this, you guys. The children are upset, real upset, and they should be. They have every reason to be. Do you guys not know that the wrath of God is coming from the children? Because the children represent the presence of God on the land. That God entrusted to the mother. God entrusted the child to the mother, period. End of story. You got problems with that? Talk to God. Children are upset because they've been ripped from their mothers, and their mothers have been ripping them away and sending them away. Also horrible. You guys want to talk about existential threats to civilization? You guys need to look at yourselves. Scientists, military madmen, you leaders that are just full of yourselves. You're full of yourselves. So, you've got nothing to hide. You guys are so honest and so accurate, then great. Then the audit's only going to be one of those little checks and balances. You're going to get your little, gold star, and you're going to pass with flying colors, and we'll be able to move forward smoothly with all of us having been brought up to speed. We want to see what every industry is saying that they know and what they're up to. It's all of our information. And I guarantee you, if we could line up like the so-called 0.01% of the world's population that think that they're elite, let's look at them in a lineup and let's judge them real quick. Let's see how many genes we don't like of theirs, their attitudes, their behavior. Let's treat them the way they're treating us then. They don't want that. Well, then they're going to have some respect. End of story. God's here to help us get it done. I'm here to help us get it done. So let's get this done, guys. Let's not be the silly, stupid people. Let's be the smart, inquisitive, lighthearted ones. Because, honestly, it's not easy for someone to have to swallow their pride. Well, if you can smile at them and let them know it's not the end of the world, it happens to all of us, it happens to the best of us, then we can help each other move forward, okay? So I'm going to some rest. But I'm coming for you, science fraudsters, because I want my daughter found and returned to me yesterday. You guys aren't going to pull off beating around the bush, bullshitting me to my face, yada yadas. Well, we don't have to tell you. We don't have to talk about it. Oh, you're going to talk. You're going to answer to me. Where's my daughter? Give me my daughter back. We'll talk afterwards. If you can't even get to that part, if you can't even get my daughter in front of my face, you guys got bigger problems than you realize. You don't break up mothers and children and break souls and assassinate souls. I will find a way to change this world. You don't step on me and my baby. You better get my child before my face. Don't try your little, we're going to keep her chained in a laboratory and then we'll tell her some story. You're not going to pull it off. So don't try it. I already know she's more valuable to you under your control than she is. You guys are so fired. You guys are so fired. Let's work on step number 1. You get my daughter in front of me first, and we'll take it from there. And tell your scientists to stop scrubbing the data, because for some reason the intelligence seems to show me every time, and it just gives me more proof. See, we did it again. Till next time.